There's a breaking story this evening which kind of illustrates and underscores what I've been talking about, the violent terrorist mindset in the United States with open borders and the Democrat Party embracing, if not promoting, but certainly not condemning, the Islamist mindset that is spreading like wildfire in this country from one no-go zone to another. We played the memory video, audio for you folks, where an Islamist imam and some other ratfink were talking about destroying America, that America needed to be destroyed, and they didn't quote Martin Luther King, they quoted Malcolm X. People come into this country, you have a first generation and a second generation in the case of those two people, and they come here to hate it. I've also spent months trying to explain that this ideology is not just about slaughtering the Jews, although that certainly is a priority. It's about destroying us, because we're the most powerful force, and not just militarily, but morally and constitutionally, that stands against these Islamists. So what happened today? From Fox, FBI arrests Idaho 18-year-old for violent plot to attack churches on behalf of ISIS, Justice Department says. They arrested an 18-year-old in Idaho after uncovering his truly horrific and violent plot to attack churches in Coeur d'Alene this past weekend on behalf of ISIS. Alexander Mercurio is now facing a federal charge of attempting to provide material support or resources to a designated foreign terrorist organization after the FBI says he devised a plan to, quote, incapacitate his father, restrain him using handcuffs, steal his firearms to use for maximum casualties, quote unquote, in an attack he had been planning to carry out in northern Idaho, the resort city in northern Idaho, Coeur d'Alene, on Sunday. The defendant allegedly pledged loyalty to ISIS, sought to attack people attending churches in Idaho, a truly horrific plan which was detected and thwarted by the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force. FBI Director Christopher Wray said in a statement, the Department of Justice will continue to relentlessly pursue, disrupt, and hold accountable those who would commit acts of terrorism against the United States. And who are they? I don't think you'll find them in the Catholic Church. I don't think you'll find them in a temple, Jewish temple. Who are they? In a criminal complaint, the FBI says the investigation began when Mercurio, who's a resident of Coeur d'Alene, quote, reached out to confidential human sources online and indicated his support for ISIS and terrorist organizations. Mercurio spread ISIS propaganda online and solicited ISIS's involvement in and approval of his propaganda efforts, discussing travel from the United States to join ISIS and considered and planned ways to support ISIS financially. His attack plan involved using flame-covered weapons, explosives, knives, a machete, a pipe, and ultimately firearms. His plan grew more precise as he eventually identified the specific church and date on which he planned to attack. And they grabbed him the day before he was going to attack. You better get used to this. I don't mean used to terrorism. I mean used to these threats. And the FBI is not going to be able to stop all of them. You can't play defense. We have an immigration system. Check that. We don't have an immigration system. Any would-be terrorists from the Middle East can slip right into this country, and I guarantee you they have. We have Soros prosecutors in this country that will not prosecute individuals who are recidivists, who even do violent crimes. You have coddling judges. But worst off, you have a president of the United States who won't stand up to anti-Semitism. Instead, he spreads it with his blood libels day in and day out against the state of Israel. Hamas doesn't fear Biden. Iran doesn't fear Biden. Hezbollah, Houthis, they all laugh. I mean, he's insisting that Israel provide more food, more medicine to people in Gaza, even though Israel is trying to defeat their leadership. And that leadership didn't shoot its way to the top. That leadership was elected. And then they shot their way to the top to stay there. In fact, the so-called peaceful Palestinians, Arafat's PLO, they're talking about a united government if they can just get their hands on Judea and Samaria, where Hamas would have cabinet positions. Oh, I bet you didn't know that. So in the middle of all this, Joe Biden is actually reaching out to Dearbornistan because he doesn't want to lose the votes of the Rashida Tlaib constituency. Of course, the media are not going to report this. They'll attack anybody who exposes it. They can attack all they want. The truth is the truth. They have no influence over people like me. Matter of fact, the more they attack, the more I push back. But you are going to see much more of this. Because of the rhetoric Biden uses, because it's now okay. Look, the heads of Hamas, memory.org, interpreted what they said. They are celebrating the position of the Democrat Party and the American media and the Islamists and Marxists in the streets. They're celebrating it. It's open season now. It's open season on the United States. It's open season on Israel. Open season. Dearbornistan, that's what I've been calling it because that's what it is. The propaganda that Joe Biden uses against the state of Israel could be used by skinheads, Klansmen, neo-Nazis, Islamists, his blood libels. And, of course, Antony Blinken, whose family is bought and paid for by George Soros, for him this is ideological. He doesn't really care. Everybody said to me, he's actually Jewish, you know. His mother was Jewish, which is fine. That's great. But he has no connection to the Jewish faith. Well, his grandparents or his great-grandparents, or one or more of them, had suffered through the Holocaust. But that's not him. He hasn't suffered through anything. And so why is he playing footsie with Iran that wants to create another Holocaust? Why is he there helping to fund Iran? I don't give a damn about his lineage. In fact, that underscores what a complete insane buffoon this ideologue is. Blinken's a traitor. He was involved in getting, in the first place in the Obama administration, as Deputy Secretary of State, he was involved in that deal intimately that would ensure that Iran would have nuclear weapons. Now he's involved as Secretary of State to ensure that Iran has nuclear weapons. There's not a single media outlet in America that has asked Blinken or Biden, what are you doing about the nukes that Iran is developing? Even on these surrogate sites, Mediaite, Media Matters, these Soros-related or Dan Abrams-related sites, not a word, nothing. And so here's a case where this guy was found out and nabbed, and there'll be many cases where nobody's found out and not nabbed, and the horror will be done. And even today, Joe Biden has said nothing. He said nothing when the comments were made in Dearbornistan. Nothing. He said nothing when those Poison Ivy League presidents of those universities said what they said. He said nothing. No speech to the nation. No concern at all.